What if I told you that the secret to scaling your business isn't about working harder? It's about working smarter with your relationships. Today, I'm sitting down with membership site genius himself, Stu McLaren, to unlock the strategies that have helped thousands of entrepreneurs break free from the one-to-one trap and building thriving communities that practically run themselves. And trust me, what Stu's about to share isn't just theory. These are battle-tested methods that have generated millions in recurring revenue for businesses just like yours.
Welcome to the Buzzworthy Marketing Podcast. Here's your host, Michael Bazinski.
Welcome to the show, Stu. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, man, I appreciate you taking the time. You are a busy person. Jeez Louise. I actually, it's funny because like your team reached out to my team, and then I was reading a book from John Lee Dumas, and I was like, heard your name. And I'm like, how do I know this name? And then I'm at the gym, so I can't really do anything until I get back to the office. And I goes, oh, wait a second. I'm talking to that guy. He's talking about you in his book. Do you talk about him in your book? Or
Yeah. It's true. I love John Lee Dumas. Great guy. He's been around a long time, and it was certainly an honor to be mentioned in his book.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, and it's not for anything trite. I mean, you are a genius when it comes to taking businesses from the one-to-one model to the one-to-many, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And so first, I want to kind of get just a little bit of backstory because maybe not everybody knows who Stu McLaren is. So just how did you get into the membership building, the community building on the marketing side of things originally?
Yeah, well, I started my online business way back in 2004. So you and I are similar. Like we go way back. And I started selling digital products. And then what I also transitioned to was a service-based business. And it was great. You know, everything was going awesome. And from 2005 to 2008, everything was rocking. But when I got married in 2007, there was a shift that started to happen because my wife and I started to have conversations about, starting our family. And at that point in this service-based business, I had a whole bunch of clients and they paid really well. But at the end of the day, I could only serve so many clients because I only had so many hours in a day. And I was up late, I was up early, I was burning the candle at both ends. And I just knew that, if I wanted to be a present father and husband, that something had to give. And ultimately that led me to a conversation with a friend of mine who suggested that I teach what I was doing for my clients. And he said, you think you should probably start a membership site. Now, this is 2008. I had no idea what he was talking about. I said, well, what's a membership? And he's like, well, think about it this way. All the things that you're doing for your clients, you could teach, and you could be teaching hundreds, if not thousands of people with a single lesson and be getting paid by all of them every single month.
Right.
And I was like, interesting. And so I started to look into that a little bit more. And back then, the technology was not what it is today. So I ended up trying to figure things out like htaccess files and server settings and all this. It was like way over my head and I was frustrated and I was venting to another friend of mine, Tracy, and I just said, man, all I want to do is I just want to teach. And he said, well, why don't you create your own membership solution? It's pretty clear you know what you want. And I was like, dude, I'm just sitting here explaining that I'm having trouble with the tech. I'm like not a software developer. No, I can't go and do that. And he said, well, look, why don't we team up together? Because I work with a developer. And we did. A month later, we had our beta version. It was then called Wishlist Member. And it went on to power over 70,000 online communities and memberships. Wow. And just being behind the scenes of that, I saw what worked and what didn't when it comes to growing a profitable membership. And that's kind of where it all began.
That's awesome. And I think that a lot of people have heard of the membership model and for our audience that are mainly B2B service providers, they go, well, I do marketing. How can I do one-to-many in marketing? And I'm like, there's guys like, Dice, Ryan Dice.
Ryan Dice.
Geez Louise, I like completely spaced on his name. Ryan, who has made a huge following in, digital marketer, right? Digitalmarketer.com, thousands of marketers, and that's a one-to-many. He's
Yeah.
teaching marketers how to be better marketers. He's also helping marketers get connected with people who are looking for marketers. So there's a huge one-to-one there. We now have law firms that do a one-to-many models for helping people get all their legal things for their businesses taken care of. There's
Yeah.
always a way to help people there. In my firm, we do a choose your own adventure model, right? And so our DIY folks is all one to many, right? Because they want to, they're still in that learning, right? So we're just teaching them the things that they don't know, right? And then it goes all the way up to the done for you, which gets back to that where a lot of people want to be in that apex. But like you said, you can only have so many one-to-one clients, or you're going to have to scale or technically grow your firm, which means adding more people. And I remember when about 6 years ago, when I decided to shut down my multi-million-dollar creative agency, because I was sick and tired of babysitting adults, right? And it was like, to grow twice as what we're at now, I'm going to have to add another 50% more people. I was tired of 24.
Totally. Yeah. And
So,
that's it. Like, as a service provider, you're stuck. You either, work more, or
right,
you have to like bring on more man or woman power.
right,
And sometimes we just don't want to do that. And I
right,
was there, like I was sharing with my story,
yeah,
and I get it. I 100% get it. And there are many great examples of, service-based businesses that are just like you said. Like, I think of Kimberly Bennett. She is a lawyer that
mm-hmm,
is reinventing the way in which she serves her clients. She's not hoping that they come to her with a case and that she gets paid
right,
for a single case. They
right,
pay her on a monthly basis.
right,
Or I think of like Mary Claire Fredette. She's a massage therapist.
mm-hmm,
When she came into our community and launched her membership, she went from hoping that clients would come in each month and get a
mm-hmm,
massage
mm-hmm,
to doing a founding member launch for her membership, where her members or customers pay her every single month and they get a certain number of massages.
right,
And I caught up with her like about 3 years after she launched, and I was asking her about it. And she said to me that she hadn't launched since. And my heart kind of dropped a little bit. I was like, oh no, how come? She's like, I haven't had to, I didn't have the need. She said over 80% of the people that signed up with me back then are still with me now.
right,
And that's just the amazingness of recurring revenue, is that
mm-hmm,
we don't have to hope that clients are going to come back, and we're not limited by our ability to scale. We
mm-hmm.
have unlimited ability to scale, and we have that predictable recurring revenue, which in my mind as a business owner is the number one thing that relieves stress, is not having to
Mm-hmm.
worry about where that next sale is going to come from.
I agree with so much that everything you just said is just like, I think that everybody listening understands that. Like, many B2B, I would probably say about 60-70% of B2B business owners are working off of retainers. Now, some of us have long-standing retainers. I have one client's been with us for 15 years, right? And then you have folks who are like, oh, they're fractionals and they only want to work with people for about 6 months. But I mean, 6 months, that's a good runway to get to the next one, right?
Yeah.
Versus every month having to start over with your ad hoc. And so I think they see that. But then I think the big disconnect is that they don't go, okay, so I get that I've got to I want to sign people up for long-term problems. So I'm going to solve their problems over time, right? And grow with them and partner with them. I get that, but that's still one-to-one. So I'm still having to technically trade time for money for a lot of this, right? So
Yep.
how do we shift our mindset of going, all right, we're going to solve these same problems that we're solving one-to-one, but we're going to transition that into a one-to-many model. How do we make that shift in our brain? How do we approach that?
Yeah, well, I think like the core of any membership is really built on the back of three factors.
Okay.
So, if you're looking at a membership site idea and you're wondering, okay, is this a good idea, a bad idea? These are the three factors to pay attention to. Number one is, can you solve an ongoing problem? So you talked about that. And there are many examples of this. I'll just share a few. Like, weight loss is a perfect example. Somebody's not going to go from being overweight to their ideal weight like that. It takes time to solve that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Or another good example would be like, dog training. You're not going to go from a puppy that's wildly out of control to the perfect puppy like that. It takes time to train that dog. That's an ongoing problem. And so if your market has an ongoing problem, that's a really good thing. That's a great indicator. Green light, thumbs up, move forward.
Right.
Second indicator is skills. So like, can you teach a skill? So a lot of service providers that you're talking about like would fit under this umbrella. That was my case. Like here I was providing a service to a small number of clients. But if I just taught people what I was doing, I could now serve so many more people through a membership. And that's exactly what I ultimately did. And that's what you're doing inside of your club as well, right? Like you're teaching skills.
Right.
And so skill development also takes time. Like people don't go from not knowing how to play the guitar to becoming the next Eric Clapton like that. It takes time to learn those skills.
Right.
And those skills are always developing. And so that's what makes for a great membership. And so there are many categories of this, whether it's various different business skills, whether it's skills like art or skills like music. There are tons of different examples. Heck, we even have Holly George in our community. She has a membership site with thousands of members teaching people how to make balloon animals, for crying out loud. It's called the Twister Hood,
I love it.
My point is that if people are looking to learn something, that's a great market for a membership. So that's the second indicator is skills. And the third is convenience. So this is where we take we look at, what is something that's complex or cumbersome or frustrating for a market, and how can we simplify their life? So there's a lot of great examples here. In our community, we have people that are in the teaching market. So my wife was a teacher for 10 years. And what I know to be true is that she would spend weekends and evenings working on lesson plans. And there are lots of great examples of teachers in our community who have created memberships serving thousands and thousands of other teachers by providing them done for you lesson plans. So I think of Anna DiGilio. She has a membership teaching, providing grade 2 teachers lesson plans for helping their kids read. I think of, Tara Phillips. She was an educator for 25 years, helping kids with autism. And throughout those years, she created a variety of resources to help her kids. And she realized, oh my gosh, like there are a lot of other educators who could benefit from these same resources. So she's, created a membership. This year, she crossed a significant milestone. It was $1 million membership this year, providing other educators with resources to help their autistic children. So these are just great examples. But then there are other examples, like I think of Andrew Kraus. He's a service provider over in Australia. He realized like he was providing Facebook ad templates to his clients and thought, wait a minute, I could do the same thing at scale. And so he created a membership providing real estate agents Facebook ad templates. And it's a higher price membership. It's $350 a month.
Right.
But for a real estate agent, if all they do is sell one home throughout the entire year because of those ads, it's paid for itself. So it's a no-brainer. So there are many ways to spin that concept of convenience. But the bottom line is that we're saving people time. And so things that would be cumbersome or that would be complex, we're simplifying it and making it easy for them, whether it's lesson plans, whether it's templates, whether it's scripts, whether it's resources, things are saving them time. So as long as your membership is either A, solving an ongoing problem, B, teaching a skill, or C, creating convenience, then you got the green light, thumbs up, move forward.
I love it. Yes, I think that the big thing in the B2B world is resources, because I think, when we're entrepreneurialism is just a very lonely place, especially when you don't know what you don't know. And so you can't even go to the people and ask the questions because you don't know what to ask. Right. And so being that person that people can go to, right. And we talk about building authority and being thought leaders and all this other stuff. And it's like that leadership means nothing if you don't then plug that into some type of knowledge base that people can access at their own time, right? You were talking about convenience, right? So having the membership site, like you're mentioning our BuzzHub Club. Our BuzzHub Club teaches people how to basically build out a marketing operating system that can run without them, right? So that they are bringing in more and more of these people who are looking to get their problem solved, right? But if we just had, how do you use our tool as a resource, they don't know what they need. It's like giving somebody a screwdriver and saying, okay, now go install a roof. I don't know. I need I don't know what tool I need. Right.
Right.
And so I feel it like being that resource and that go-to to say, hey, listen, I'm going to give you all the information you need to move forward on your own. And knowing, like you were talking about, we were just talking about books earlier before the show, we write books so that people can do it on their own, knowing that about 2% of them are not going to want to do it on their own. Right. And
Well,
they're going to come out there.
and here's the thing. Here's interesting. So when I started my first software company,
Mm-hmm.
we started to get a lot of questions, as
Mm-hmm.
in any company would do. And yes, a lot of them were about how to use the actual software, but there was a large chunk of them that were unrelated to the software, but were more related to the strategy behind using the software.
Yes.
And this is a clue for anybody watching and listening. This is a clue. Like when you look at the questions that your audience are asking, there are hidden clues there that are indicating, hey, this could be a great membership. Ultimately, we realized like this is an opportunity. So we ended up creating a membership site that was teaching the strategy. And yes, did we mention our software? For sure. But we ended up having thousands of members in this membership where we were teaching them the strategy of what the software is ultimately helping them do. And
Mm-hmm.
here's what's fascinating about that is that if we can have a membership that's teaching the strategy, people are going to more effectively be able to use our software and they're going to get better results. And so they're going to stay on the software even longer. And
Mm-hmm.
we're getting paid to be able to serve them in that way. So it was like the double win. We're helping them experience more success at the same time as creating another predictable recurring revenue stream for us. And we're helping them get the most out of the software because it's backed now, not just by the how-tos, but it's backed by strategies that we know work. And so I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of service-based businesses that are probably have clues from their customers that this would be a great next step forward. And it creates that predictable recurring revenue that we all know and love.
I love that. And another thing is a lot of people think, well, when we go to one to many, we're solving the 101 level, the intro to the next problem. Right. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, listen, you want to make the biggest impact, find the biggest pain. And the bigger the pain you solve, the more you get to charge for it. Right. Because there's a higher value. I tell people all the time, it's like, if you solve a $10,000 problem, you can't charge $1 million for it. But if you have a $10 million problem, now we're talking. Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, you have such big problems you solve that you do have to kind of start towards the beginning and find out where they're at and then pick up with them where you meet them where they're at to get them to the point where, okay, the next thing is solving that big problem. Right.
Yep.
And understanding that your community is, once they get in, you get to guide them through that process. And so what Stu was talking about earlier is like, you're solving for a problem, but if in business, every problem solved creates the next problem. I don't know one business owner who says, yeah, I've solved all the problems in my business. Everything is just easy now. Like that's never a thing. And the bigger your business get, the bigger the problems get. Right. And so if that's who you want to be working with, you have to get them before they're there a lot of times and then work them into that, which then goes to what you were talking about, where you're basically guiding them through the journey that you've already been on. And you only have to be a couple steps ahead of your audience. If you're too far ahead, they don't relate to you. So that's, I think, is something that a lot of people are like, well, I don't know enough. I was like, if you are beyond a lot of people you're talking to, guess what? You can lead because you've already been there. You know how to drag through that and without all the pain, right?
And there's even examples of memberships where people are not the expert. So like, I think of Scott Paley as an example. Like he's not the expert, but he's created a membership site called the Nonprofit Leadership Lab. And he partnered with a woman, Joan Gary, where she is the expert, but she had no interest in, creating the membership. So they partnered together. That's a multi-million-dollar a year membership. They got more than 6,000 plus members for helping nonprofit leaders. Nice. Or another example is John Gallagher. When he started his membership site, it's called Herb Mentor. He was not the expert. He just had an interest in it. And so what he did was he just had his finger on the pulse of his community. So he would always be asking and looking for the questions and things that they're looking to solve. And then he'd go and find the people, bring them in and interview them as part of his membership.
I love
And
it.
throughout the years, obviously he developed an expertise, but when he began, he didn't have it. And so I
Love it.
think that all as entrepreneurs, we are entrepreneurs because we think differently. We think creatively. And so
Mhm.
even if you are not ahead of the people that you want to serve, there are 100% ways to be able to serve them in a membership. You just got to think a little more creatively.
So what's the first step? I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm a business owner, I'm listening to Stu talk, and I think I have an ongoing problem. I've met all three of the criteria Stu talked about. Where do I start?
Yeah, well, what I would say is the good news is you don't even need to meet all three of those criteria. You just need to meet one of the three. So, like, if you are able to solve an ongoing problem, that's a check mark, move forward. If you can teach a skill, that's a check mark, move forward. Or if you can create convenience in some way, that too is a check mark, move forward. From there, it's really about an audience. Like, do you have an audience of at least 200 people or more? Now, these could be 200 clients. These could be 200 people on social media. These could be 200 people on an email list. But as long as you've got an audience of 200 or more, you have everything that you need to be able to move forward. At that point, you're going to do what we call a founding member launch. And you're actually going to make an offer for a membership that you have not created. Now, I know that that is like completely counterintuitive and it sounds insane. And you might be thinking like, what the heck is this crazy Canadian on? Like even suggesting that I sell something that I haven't even created. But here's the reality of the situation. When you create a membership, it is always going to change and evolve based on your members' needs. So what I recommend is that you be upfront and transparent about the fact that you don't have anything created, but you cast a vision for what you want and will see created. So here's an example. Like we recommend you follow 5 steps. The first step is you create a message for how wherever you communicate with your audience. So if it's
Mhm.
email, you send it via email. If it's social, you send it on that platform, wherever it is. But the first part of the message is going to be about the idea. And you may say something like, I was listening to this great podcast where this crazy Canadian was talking about starting a membership site. And it got me thinking. It got me thinking about you. And it got me thinking about like what it might be like to be able to create a centralized place to provide resources and create community to support you in your journey of going from X to Z. And so you start talking about what the idea is and where you got the idea. That's the first part of the message. Second part of the message is then you're going to cast the vision. And you would say something like, now I don't have anything created yet. This right now is just a raw idea.
Mhm.
But here's where I see this going. I see this becoming a place where people who are stuck with XYZ problem are, adventuring towards ABC solution. I see this being a place where when you got questions, you get immediate answers. You're no longer spinning your wheels wondering what if. I see this being a place, and you talk about the vision of what you see this becoming. That's the second part of the message. The third part of the message is then you cast the invite. And the invite would sound something like, now, as I mentioned, this is just a raw idea.
Mhm.
But if this sounds interesting to you, I want to encourage you to just send me a direct message or reply to this email or wherever it is
Mhm.
that you're communicating. But all you want is them to show interest. So you would say, my favorite is just send me a direct message.
Right.
Because then that way, like nobody knows if 100 people send me a direct message or one
Mhm.
person sends me a direct message or worst case scenario is 0 people. But I haven't,
But then
you know, nobody knows.
You know.
My ego is saved, and I can make a decision then whether I move forward or not.
Right.
But I always the invite is for them to send me a direct message, and then the call to action, which is the fourth part of the message, is specifically how do you want. So that's why I said
Mm.
for me, it's always send me a direct message. Once they send you a direct message, that's when you move to the fifth part of the process, which is follow up, because it's going to feel really good when people respond and they say, yes, I'm interested. And that's going to feel good. But interest doesn't pay the bills. What pays the bills is when they express interest, you then send them a payment link. Now, this is where people get a little squirrely because they think, oh my gosh, I need to create like a sales page or I need a video or I need something. No. Just send them a simple checkout link. And what
Right.
we're going to do is we're going to offer them a founding member price. So you might say something like, when I launch this to the general public, the price is going to be $50 a month. But if you join as a founding member, it's going to be $30 a month, and you'll be locked in at that founding member price for as long as you stay a member in good standing. So people love a good deal, number one, but they love even more an ongoing good deal. And that's
Right.
exactly what you're providing them with the founding member launch. Now, here's the crazy part about this whole process. People watching and listening can literally do this by the end of the day because it is so simple. And because it is so simple, we often overthink it and make it more complex than it needs to be. But it is one message that you are essentially putting out to your audience to gauge interest. And I know some people are thinking, yeah, but what if nobody expresses interest? Well, here's the good news. You didn't go and create anything. You didn't spend any time. You didn't spend any money. You didn't spend hardly any effort. So nothing is wasted there. But what you have done is you've learned. You've learned that what you're saying isn't in alignment with what the market wants. And so now it's just a matter of repositioning your messaging and your offer so that it is in alignment. But when it does, and it often will, it is exhilarating because you create momentum, and that momentum is everything in the membership game. And so that's the next step, is to do a founding member launch and to not overthink it, but just to move forward by casting the idea, or by putting the idea out there, casting the vision, inviting people to join as a founding member with a clear call to action, and then following up accordingly. You do that, you're off to the races.
Wow, Stu just handed you a roadmap to entrepreneurial freedom. But here's the reality check. Having a map doesn't mean you'll ever take the journey. What if I told you that by the end of today, yes, today, you could have your first paying members for a brand new scalable offer, even if you haven't created a single piece of content yet? Even if your website looks like it was built in 2005, even if you're absolutely terrified of putting yourself out there, Stu just laid out a foolproof plan to a way to escape the one-to-one business model. But unfortunately, 98% of people will hear this advice and still do nothing. Don't let that be you. Let me share you something very personal. Last year, I was exactly where many of you are, stuck in the hamster wheel of client work, trading hours for dollars. I had this idea for a group program, but kept telling myself just one more month of preparation. 6 months later, I still hadn't launched. Then a friend challenged me to do exactly what Stu described, launch before I felt ready. I wrote one simple post, and it went like this: I'm thinking of starting an online community for B2B service-based businesses. Who would be interested? That's it. No fancy sales page, no elaborate email sequence. Am I now an overnight multimillionaire? No. Do I have a community launched with a few pieces of content people can download for free? Yes. It's called BuzzHub Club, and you can check it out at buzzhub.club and get free access today. My end goal is to provide workshops and masterclasses for my DIY folks. Is this what Stu talked about? No. Is it better than nothing? Yes. Now it's your turn. Seriously, take this moment right now. If you had to launch a scalable offer today without creating any content, what would you sell? Before I go, I want you to remember this. Successful entrepreneurs don't wait for the perfect moment. They test, they iterate, they move forward. Right now, you have an opportunity to take a step forward with a business model that frees you from the constraints of your time. A model that lets you help more people while working less. And if you're still not convinced or just not interested in creating a community, then tune in next week as I uncover ways to scale your current business model in a predictably scalable way. So be sure to hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss it. Until then, remember that being boring is a choice. So stay buzzworthy.